Hey dancers, welcome back to our channel. I'm Julie. I'm the owner and one of the instructors here at Broche Ballet, a ballet school just for adults in Denver, Colorado. I am here today with the wonderful Steve from Stretch Lab. Stretch Lab is an awesome place that helps you really reach your flexibility goals, and Steve is one of the fabulous stretchers there who also works with some of our dancers here in the studio. We have invited Steve on our channel today to talk all about stretching and answer all of your stretching questions. So let's get started.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, so we've got a few questions here that our dancers ask us. Let's start by talking about warm-up. Should we warm up before we stretch? Should we stretch during our warm-up? What's the deal there?
Generally speaking, it's probably important to warm up before you actually stretch, because throughout the day, throughout the other 23 hours that you're not doing your dancing practice, you're going to tighten up. Things are going to get tight, big muscle groups, some of the smaller muscle groups in your hips. So it's probably really good to do some trigger point or foam rolling just to kind of get the tissues moving over, because that kind of gets all the tissue sliding and the muscles moving and warmed up and prepped, and it gives you an opportunity to actually get a better stretch on the muscles and elongate them a little bit better. Yeah.
So a good way to warm up. We want to get started getting the tissues going. Should we be doing any like big functional movements? Should we be getting the body temperature up, or is really kind of rolling the fascia a good place to start?
If you're doing some of those functional movements in your warm up, I don't know if you guys do that in your ballet warm up, then you don't have to focus on it as much. The biggest idea is just to kind of get things moving, get the tissues moving, get everything warmed up, and we're really focusing on adhesions and tight spots because we want to get some blood circulating through the system. If there's big adhesions in it and then you go to stretch it, it's not going to stretch very well, and you're going to kind of compensate. So what I'm really focusing on is spending 5 to 10 minutes, and if you do find some really, really big spots, you can get into some dynamic stretching.
So let's talk about static and dynamic stretching. What's the deal with it? Should we be doing it? When should we be doing it? How does it relate to our warm-up and our workout?
Okay, awesome. So static stretching versus dynamic stretching. Generally speaking, you should do static stretching after your dancing practice, because everything is getting compressed, it's getting tight, and you want to kind of decompress it and get it back to baseline. Now, prior to working out, it's generally better to do dynamic stretching, and which would be something like I call it, and personal trainers call it, active isolated stretching. And that's more where you're kind of putting your body into a position and then isolating a particular joint or series of joints to achieve a particular type of range of motion before you start to dance and warm up, because things get tight, right? Hips get tight, shoulders get tight. So generally we'll do some active isolated stretching, which is 1 to 2 second holds or just moving things through a range of motion, and then we'll go into our dance. So that's kind of the static versus dynamic.
So is dynamic a lot more focused on joints versus stretching muscles? Is that another way to kind of describe what you just said?
No, that's a good question. I would say dynamic is more focused on moving the joint and muscles through a range of motion actively. Okay, and then static stretching is just taking that muscle and tissue to an end range and holding there for a long period of time. I see. Okay, so when we want to do static stuff after we've been moving really hard and really fast, we want to do dynamic stuff before we move really hard and really fast. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, it does. So static, we're taking it to the end of our range and holding it there, increasing the end of the range. Right. Dynamic, we're getting things moving, we're getting the blood flowing, we're increasing our range of motion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So we're really doing dynamic before a workout, we're doing static after a workout.
Generally speaking. However, the one exception is you can do static stretching before your workout if you have really, really tight, like a single tight joint or a single tight area, and you really need to kind of open that up so that both of them are a little bit balanced before you start to train. So it's not 100% that you can't do static, but just be aware that if you have a really huge imbalance, that's why it's really good to warm up, like we were talking about earlier, and use that trigger point push into it, foam roll, do things to get that tissue moving. And that'll allow you to maybe, if something is still tight after you get it trigger pointed, you can maybe do a static stretch on it to try to get it equal to the other side. I know we're not talking about a specific muscle, but this could apply to any muscle or any muscle group or any tissue. So don't really complicate it too much.
So my left hamstring is always way tighter than my right. And so therefore a lot of times I end up doing not as well on my left side, or maybe I'm compensating a little bit. So maybe the left hamstring's a place where I should really dig in before a workout, do some trigger point, maybe a little bit of stretching.
Yes, we're not, with all of this when we're talking about it, we're just trying to get everything moving well before we move under high load and force, natural or unnatural, whatever it is. So absolutely.
Got it. Oil the wheels first before we really drive it.
Right.
Awesome. Cool. Last question on this topic. Is there a time limit? How long can we hold a static stretch?
Okay. So you can hold it for as long as you want, but the length that you hold it is going to have a different effect. So for muscles, you don't really need to hold a static stretch at the end range under a really active stretch where you feel it getting longer for more than a minute. 30 seconds to a minute is the sweet spot. Any more is not really going to do much for you. But the gray area is it's the connective tissue that surrounds the muscles. It's more like a big spider web that covers your body. And that tissue needs a little bit longer to be held under tension in order for it to make change. So generally, you kind of know if you're on connective tissue because it's a little bit tighter and it's more around your joints. It's like tendons and ligaments and all of the things that pull into joints. Muscle tissue is a little bit more meaty and fat and things like that. So if you want to focus on releasing the tissues around the joints a little bit more, you have to hold those static stretches for longer. But you'll kind of know that. You'll feel it in the stretch. If you feel the joints really, really, really tight, you'll feel that. But the best time still to do static is at the end of the workout, not at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of feelings in a stretch, are there any sensations that we should really be avoiding? Like when we're stretching, we feel, ouch, that hurt. But sometimes stretching does hurt in a good way.
Great question.
Are there any sensations we should avoid?
Yeah. So you shouldn't be in pain. And obviously pain's relative. Discomfort and pain are two different things. Okay, so pain is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a response to let you know that, hey, something's going on here, think about what you're doing. So the whole idea is if you feel something impinged, like you feel a nerve response, tingling, numbing, things like that, you should probably back off a little bit. As far as what you should feel is you should feel good tension, almost like a rubber band being pulled apart at the end range, and then the ability to release it and snap it away, kind of like you're just shooting a rubber band across the room. So you want to feel that good tension. Now, if you feel it's like stuck and it's not stretching and you don't feel that elastic quality, that's a good indicator that you might need to foam roll and trigger point to get that to open up. And then once you start to feel that elasticity in the muscle and the connective tissue, then you're like, okay, I'm good to go. Yeah,
so when it feels stuck,
yeah,
then we need to take a different approach. When we feel nervy pain, pinchy pain, stabby pain, then maybe take a breather.
Yeah, or kind of get into that area and try to release the tissue around that joint capsule where you feel stuck. Like I get stuck right here a lot. So my subscapular, when I'm going into overhead on this side, this whole area gets really stuck and tight. So I'll take a big foam roller and just lay on it, compress it, work my arm through a range of motion, try to kind of get some feedback and just make it feel a little bit better before I start to move under heavy load and force.
Yeah. So last question we get is sort of very isolated as like, can I get my splits if I never stretched before and I started as an adult? But let's sort of broaden it to like, can your body change? Can you reach your goals? What does it really take to create actual change in your body structure?
Okay. Yeah. Just good habits, really good habits and behavior change. It's all about behavior change. Like there's no magic pill. There's no magic. What you have to do is kind of, first thing is I would say get a coach. If you feel like you have things going on in your body, go see somebody. It doesn't have to be, a stretch guy. It could be, a massage therapist that you're already working with. It could be a chiropractor. It could be, a physical therapist, whatever the case may be, or it could be, a personal trainer. It doesn't matter, but you should have some type of coach to help you if you feel like things aren't moving the way they should be, because it's really good to have that objective second, set of eyes to help you, reach your goals first and foremost. But you can change, to answer the question, but it takes a long time to create change. If you think about it, as we get older, specifically as grown-ups, we don't learn as fast because we already have our patterns established, and neuroplasticity and our brain-body connection, it kind of changes. It's a little bit harder because we're already creatures of habit. It's really, we have to reprogram our movement, right? Because even when we get out of the womb and we start crawling and doing things, we can put our feet in our mouths. We have like perfect deep squats when we start like squatting from the ground. So you're kind of born with the ability to move. We lose it over time because we create new patterns and we change the way. Also, there's trauma, there's life experiences, there's accidents, there's all kinds of things that happen that change our bodies so that we can't necessarily do the things that we want to do anymore. And it's kind of frustrating, but you can do it. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. You have to really hone in on those areas, and don't think of treating just the joint around it. Think about treating everything that connects to it. And unfortunately, everything is connected from the head to the feet. So you have to work on everything, and you just have to kind of, really focus on maybe the bigger muscle groups first, the bigger areas, and then work your way from the middle down. And eventually, if you keep doing that, you're going to reach your goals. It's inevitable. You can do it. It's just different people are going to need different amount of times. And the most important thing is to be consistent, have a plan, and have some objective help to make sure that you're doing the right things. Because doing the wrong things can actually make it worse.
Well, awesome. All right, dancers, I hope you had a lot of fun with Steve here from Stretch Lab. I hope he answered all of your questions about stretching, but if there's anything left on your mind, let us know in the comments below. Until next time, take care.